Welcome to topic 9, everybody, on the digestive system. Now, this is the first part of the topic, and we're going to be learning about the anatomy and functions of the digestive system. And so the learning objectives for this first part are to be able to describe the functions of the digestive system in general, and then be able to list the regions of the digestive tract and describe the functions that occur in each region, be able to define the term peristalsis, and then be able to outline the structure, the histology, and the regulation of the digestive system, and be able to describe the structure of the peritoneum. So, just by way of introduction, the function of our digestive system is to break down food, right? And to be able then to release those nutrients and absorb those nutrients into the body so that tissue cells can use those nutrients. When we think of the digestive system, we always think of the small intestine as doing most of the work. So this is the workhorse of the system where the majority of digestion occurs, so that chemical digestion, and where most of the released nutrients are absorbed either straight into the bloodstream or into the lymphatic system and then into the venous circulation. However, every part of the digestive system organs make a vital contribution to the whole digestive process. And the digestive system itself functions cooperatively with other systems, such as the cardiovascular system. Okay, so obviously the products of digestion are transported via the cardiovascular system to body cells to be used. And also the digestive system cooperates with the endocrine system. There are many hormones produced by cells of the digestive system that are involved in, the regulation of digestion, but also some hormones that we've studied before, such as insulin and glucagon. They're involved in the regulation of things like blood glucose levels, and obviously glucose is a product of the digestive process. Now, the digestive system is often called the alimentary canal or the alimentary tract. It's also called the GI tract or the GIT or the gastrointestinal tract, but that technically does refer to gastro for stomach and intestinal obviously for the intestines. And then we also, as well as having these really important digestive organs, we have these accessory organs, which are primarily glands, and they secrete lots of fluids into the tract, which helps or assists or are actually essential for the process of digestion. So if we look at the components of the digestive system now, firstly, we have the mouth or the oral cavity. And then it has these accessory glands called the salivary glands that produce saliva. And also, the tonsils are associated with the oral cavity too. Then we move down to the pharynx or the throat with tubular mucus glands. Now you're going to hear me talking about mucus a lot in the digestive system. It has several functions that we'll get onto in a minute. We have this straight tube then called the esophagus. It also has tubular mucus glands, and it transports, swallowed food from the pharynx to the stomach. The stomach itself also has many different kinds of glands that are tubular. The small intestine then is divided into subdivisions called the duodenum, the ileum, and the jejunum. We'll talk about all of that later. And it also has these accessory organs and glands here too. So the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. And then we, of course, have the large intestine, and that also includes regions, so the cecum and the colon with its different regions, the rectum and the anal canal, and they're all lined with mucus glands. And then, of course, we have the termination of the digestive system where, through the excretion of feces, those waste products of digestion are permanently eliminated from the body. All right, we'll start with the functions now of the digestive system. So firstly, we have ingestion. What is ingestion? It's introduction of food into the stomach. Now, I just want to get a little bit of terminology in here. When we chew food with our teeth and our tongue is involved and the saliva gets introduced into it to create what we call a bolus of food. That bolus then is swallowed, and that bolus of food then enters the stomach. Okay, so the introduction of food into the stomach is called ingestion. Then what leaves the stomach is called chyme or chyme. So it's spelled Chyme. So it is important, that you're able to use the correct terminology. So we create the bolus of food that we swallow into the stomach, and then what leaves the stomach is the chyme. Okay, the second function then is mastication, and that's the correct term for chewing. It's a type of mechanical sort of digestion, and that breaks up the food particles into smaller food particles. But what it's doing is it's kind of increasing that surface area for the chemical digestion, so for the enzymes to work on these food molecules to break them down into those nutrients that we need. So mastication breaks down large particles mechanically to increase that surface area then for chemical digestion to occur. Propulsion then. Propulsion means movement forwards, right? So deglutition is a type of propulsion. This is more commonly known as swallowing. We'll get on to the swallowing mechanism shortly. We have peristalsis. Now, peristalsis is a really important type of movement to know about that occurs through the digestive tracts. And it happens, in rhythmical waves. And in some parts of the digestive tract, those rhythmic waves are really powerful. Okay, so what you're looking at here is these waves of peristalsis. So a wave of circular smooth muscle relaxation. Now, what you've got to remember is that the digestive system is this big hollow tube, right, with different regions. And so you're going to have rings of smooth muscle that are capable of relaxing and contracting. And so with peristalsis, you get these waves of circular smooth muscle relaxation that move ahead of the bolus of food or the chyme, depending on where you are in the digestive tract, allowing the digestive tract to expand. And then a wave of contraction of the circular smooth muscle behind the bolus of food or chyme then propels it through the digestive tract. It's a little bit like the movement, of a caterpillar kind of thing. But if you also imagine, a stocking with a ball in it, and you squish kind of, one end of it, which will move the ball further along the stocking, if you know what I mean. And we'll do that in the tube so you get the hang of it. And then we also have mass movements in the large intestine that are less regular than the peristaltic rhythmic waves, but they tend to move food over, greater distances. And we'll get to that when we get to the large intestine. There are also mixing sort of movements as well, and these are called segmental contractions, and they occur in the small intestine. This type of movement doesn't propel food along, it just mixes, okay? And again, you can see this kind of schematic explaining it here. So secretions are introduced into the digestive tract, or chyme within the digestive tract begins in one location. Segments of the digestive system then alternate between contraction and relaxation, which is what you're looking at here. And the material in the intestine then is spread out in both directions from the site of introduction. And so what happens is segmentation then separates the chyme, then pushes it back together, and it mixes it, and it provides time for digestion and absorption to occur. So these mixing sort of segmental contractions brings the chyme, in closer proximity to all of the, the secretions and the digestive enzymes, so that the digestion and absorption can occur. Function 5 then is secretion. So there's lots and lots of secretions that are added to the digestive tract, and they act to lubricate the bolus or the chyme, to liquefy and to digest. Now, some of them include mucus. Mucus is secreted along the whole entire digestive tract. For lubrication, it also provides a lining. For example, there's a very thick alkaline mucus in the stomach that protects against the acidic contents of the food and the hydrochloric acid and all of that. So the mucus will coat the lining and protect from mechanical digestion, from acid, and from digestive enzymes, some of which, if you think about the enzymes that split proteins, they are very powerful digestive enzymes. And so you need this mucus to prevent these enzymes from digesting the, say the stomach wall or whatever. Water for liquefaction makes food easier to digest and absorb. We also have bile. Now, bile is made in the liver and then it's released from the gallbladder when it contracts. And bile emulsifies fats, so it doesn't really break down fats, such as, lipase, which is the enzyme that breaks down fats. But what it does is it causes emulsification. So the bile causes lipid droplets to form, and therefore that increases kind of that surface area to facilitate the breakdown via the enzymes. Now, we also have enzymes as well that carry out chemical digestion. Function 6 then is digestion. We have mechanical digestion, we'll talk about where that occurs in a minute, and chemical digestion. 7 is absorption, so movement from the digestive tract straight into the blood circulation or into the lymphatic system. And finally, elimination. So waste products are removed from the body, and the process of elimination of feces, of course, is called defecation. And so here you can see in all of these pretty little colored boxes here where all of these things are occurring. So propulsion, particularly the pharynx and the esophagus, and you can follow it all the way down, right down to the termination there of the digestive tract. We also have chemical digestion. We're going to go through everywhere that's occurring. Mechanical digestion then in the pink, and then absorption then in the orange, and you can see lots of it occurring there in the small intestine. And this here is a lovely table. I'm not going to read it all for you here, but it is from your textbook, and it summarizes everything that we're going to be talking about. And I've also placed a video here, so you can take a break from me for now and watch that little video. It looks at, movement of food through the digestion. So now we're going to look at the histology of the digestive tract, and there are 4 layers to the digestive tract wall. The mucosa is the innermost layer, and the serosa or adventitia then is the outermost layer. So for the mucosa, this is the layer that's in contact with either the bolus of food and the secretions or the chyme. It's the innermost layer. It consists of mucous epithelium. It's stratified squamous in the mouth and the oropharynx, the esophagus and the anal canal. And that makes an awful lot of sense because it's multiple layers of flat epithelium, and that's to withstand abrasion and to withstand different sort of foods entering our mouth that might be acidic or basic. And then it's simple columnar epithelium in the rest of the tract. The mucosa layer also contains a loose connective tissue which forms the lamina propria, and also the muscularis mucosa, which is smooth muscle. Okay, so that's what you're looking at here, the mucosa layer with the lamina propria and the muscularis mucosa. Then we have the submucosa, which is this one here. It's a thick connective tissue layer, and it has all of the nerves, the blood vessels and small glands. And it also has the parasympathetic submucosal network or plexus of fibers. Then we have the muscularis layer. Now, as its name suggests, it contains muscle. So the muscularis layer has 2 or 3 layers of smooth muscle, depending on the region of the digestive tract. The stomach has 3 layers, other regions have 2 layers. Now, 2 of these layers of smooth muscle are circular and longitudinal. We'll talk about the oblique layer in the stomach later. Now, there is one exception to this smooth muscle rule, the esophagus. The upper 1/3 of the esophagus is skeletal muscle. It's striated and it's under voluntary control. And the rest then is under involuntary control because it's smooth muscle. This layer also contains a nerve network called the myenteric plexus, and together the myenteric plexus and that submucosal plexus, together they're called the enteric or intramural plexus. Now, what does this all mean? It means that the digestive system itself has this enteric sort of nervous system. So this locally acting nervous system that's controlling things like movement, so peristalsis and other forms of movement, and also secretions. The outer layer then is the serosa, or sometimes called adventitia. It's connective tissue, right? Where the serosa is present, it's called visceral peritoneum, and where adventitia is present, the connective tissue then blends with connective tissue of surrounding structures. So the digestive system is under nervous system regulation and also chemical regulation. As I mentioned on the previous slide, we do have this locally acting sort of enteric nervous system, abbreviated to the ENS. And it's sort of, controlling sort of local movement and secretion within the digestive tract. Types of neurons are those sensory neurons that are detecting sort of, food in the tract, and then motor neurons as well. And we have these interneurons then that are, allowing that information to be passed between the sensory and motor neurons. So this locally acting enteric nervous system coordinates movement, things like peristalsis, and regulates local reflexes. Of course, there is sort of coordination with the central nervous system as well. And there may be initiation of reflexes, right? So just as you're sitting there listening to me, I don't know what time of the day it is when you're listening to me, but you might be like looking at an ad on the TV of some food looking really yummy, or you might get a smell of food, garlic or something cooking in the kitchen, or taste of food itself will initiate different sorts of reflexes that we're going to talk about. The nervous regulation of the digestive tract is primarily parasympathetic arm of the autonomic nervous system. Remember, that's that rest and digest element. So it's going to increase things like, secretions into the digestive tract. Sympathetic input then inhibits muscle contraction, inhibits secretion, and it decreases blood flow to the digestive tract, whereas parasympathetic will increase blood flow to the digestive tract. Now, chemical regulation. There's lots of production and secretion of hormones. These are locally acting hormones from these kind of enteroendocrine cells that secrete them. So things like gastrin and secretin and cholecystokinin, and we'll talk about them when we get to the stomach and the small intestine. There's also production of these sort of locally acting chemical signaling molecules such as histamine. Histamine is really important because it stimulates the production of hydrochloric acid in the stomach. And it helps to sort of help local reflexes in the enteric nervous system control the conditions of the internal environment. For example, pH levels. Now, acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter involved in, increasing secretions and motility of the parasympathetic nervous system, whereas noradrenaline of the sympathetic nervous system, kind of has that inhibitory effect. Now, another neurotransmitter that's really important in the digestive system is serotonin. And serotonin acts when it's released to increase motility. And about 95% of all of the serotonin in our bodies is located in our digestive tract. So drugs that are used to increase serotonin levels, such as antidepressants, will also have effects on the gastrointestinal tract. Now, the body walls and the organs of the abdominal cavity are lined with serous membranes called the peritoneum. Now, these are smooth membranes, and they secrete a fluid that provides a lubricating film between the membranes. And this fluid is called peritoneal fluid. Now, there are two layers of the peritoneum. The visceral peritoneum there covers organs, and the parietal then covers the interior surface of the body wall. The membrane also covers organs, but also provides a flexible scaffold to hold the organs in place. And this is via these connective tissue mesenteries that hold the organs in place while allowing kind of expansion and movement as the fluid, or the food passes through. As we've mentioned in a couple of topics now, there are certain organs that are in a retroperitoneal position because they're covered by peritoneum on only one surface. So they are considered to be behind the peritoneum. For example, we talked before about the kidneys, also the pancreas is retroperitoneal, and the duodenum as well. The mesenteries, as I mentioned on the previous slide, these are two layers of peritoneum with a thin layer of connective tissue between them. And they provide the routes for vessels and nerves to pass from the body wall into the sort of abdominal organs. Visceral peritoneum includes multiple large folds that envelop some abdominal organs, holding them to the dorsal surface of the body wall. And within the folds then are those blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and nerves that innervate the organs. And these are the 5 peritoneal folds. So the greater omentum, the falciform ligament, the lesser omentum, the mesentery, and then the mesocolon as well. So that's just a little overview of the digestive system. I'm going to stop here, and when I come back, we're going to start talking about the oral cavity.